AskReddit.
Warning: viewers' discretion is advised. Waiters, what dating disasters have you witnessed? I worked at a bar in a hotel for 5 years. I had a table come down from their hotel room and sit at one of my pub tables for dinner. From the moment they sat down, you could tell the wife was furious about something. She was unbelievably pleasant toward me, but did not say a single word to the man at the table. I get their drinks, and then their orders. He ordered steak, and she ordered the sauciest pasta dish we had on the menu. About 20 minutes later, the wife still hadn't said a word to the man since they sat down, their food was done, and my food runner set it on the table. Right as I was about to walk over to see if they needed anything else, I saw the woman stand up, say "Go fuck yourself, John," as she picked up the plate of pasta and dumped it all over his head and down into his lap. Then she very calmly walked out of the bar and back up to her hotel room. I spent a few minutes helping the man clean up and got my manager to come handle the situation from there, as it was way above my pay grade at that point. Later in the night, the woman came back to the bar without the man, and we talked for a while. Turns out he admitted to cheating on her right before their dinner reservation. I never saw either of them again. I was bartending at a restaurant in San Francisco. This guy came in and ordered a vodka martini. He downed it and ordered another. Halfway through his third, he called his wife and asked for a divorce. After he hung up, we talked about the Red Sox. "I'm from Boston." "Ha ha ha, honey, I want a divorce." "CLICK, hey, how about them Red Sox?" I was a waiter at a very famous, upscale restaurant, and a gentleman approached the maîtrette requesting someone take pictures of him proposing to his girlfriend. Since I was the closest asshole to the maîtrette, I was tasked with performing this duty. After stalking the table for a solid hour, the moment was inevitably approaching. I sat up at an angle she couldn't see me, and when he busted out the ring, I started taking as many pictures as I could. Anyone who has tried to capture a once-in-a-lifetime moment on camera knows that you're not really watching what's going on, you're just trying to frame the moment. After about 20 to 30 pictures, I slowly realized that she was declining the proposal, and the scene was quickly degenerating into a 5-alarm dumpster fire. However, I was far enough away that I couldn't hear what was being said and couldn't be sure of what was transpiring, so I continued taking pictures just in case. Finally, I stepped back and watched the scene unfold in reality as she stormed out of the restaurant in embarrassment, and he scrambled to pay the bill and chase after her. He'd requested that I use my phone and send the best pictures to him. Needless to say, he never approached us for the pictures, and I have about 100 plus pictures of a wedding proposal gone wrong somewhere deep in my iCloud photo bank. I was bartender at a country club in college, and I watched a woman curse her husband out at their table because the husband kept flirting with the waitress. She got really loud and walked out. Keep in mind, this was a nice restaurant at an upscale country club. The waitress felt it was all her fault, but she told me the guy had been coming in there often and tipping her 100% of the bill every time. I feel horrible because I'd never remember everyone who worked at mine's name, but they had to always remember mine. They really do flirt with you though. And they would hire the prettiest girls they could find. Drinking at a country club was a mess. They don't cut you off, and you can order whatever you want. I used to work at a bar where 70% of the customers were on Tinder dates. There was a line of 2-person booths along the wall when you first walk in. There were 2 dudes sitting by themselves in 2 different booths. Both of them were facing the door. One was in the first booth, one was in the last booth. This girl comes in and walks up to the first booth, says hi to the guy, and sits down. They are chatting for about 5 minutes when the other guy, who is sitting by himself, comes up to her and says, "Hey, I'm so-and-so, aren't you so-and-so?" They all talk for like 30 seconds, and she gets up and goes and sits with the other guy at the last booth. Eventually, a different girl shows up for a date with the guy at the first booth. I don't know exactly what happened, but I almost died watching it unfold. She was definitely embarrassed. Okay, here's a great story that I've been wanting to share. I work at a small bakery in my town. I am general kitchen staff and not a waiter, but I was there when this all went down. It was around 2 in the afternoon. The day had been normal, but suddenly I saw the retail staff in a huddle and took my first opportunity to go see what was happening. Apparently, a couple had come in on the summer day, ordered 2 bowls of soup and sat down. The girl that took their order went to the back and prepared their soup for them, then brought it back out. In the time it took for her to get the soup, the woman had taken off her flip-flop, put her leg across the table, and the guy was going to town sucking on this lady's toes in the middle of the restaurant. The waitress didn't notice until she went to place the soup on the table. She stood there in shock, and the couple was oblivious to her presence. This guy is going all in, and the lady is starting to moan by the time they realize their soup is ready. The waitress was in complete shock for the rest of her shift, and the couple is no longer allowed on the premises. This place has even more weird stories, from someone forcing open the back door to ask for a hamburger to a complete stranger coming out of the basement and acting like he's supposed to be there. Not to mention the time I watched a bird fly out of a hole in the ceiling. Kentucky can be a weird place. I, 22 meters at the time, was busboy at a 200-seat restaurant that was part of a sporting club. I'd been there for long enough to have a feel for the personalities of the customers. On this particular night, one of my tables was a first date. The girl was lovely, all smiles and very pleasant. The guy was sort of normal, seemed a bit quiet. He put off some fairly clear signals that he would prefer to be left alone though. That's okay, Sim prefer minimal service. What I did notice though was that the guy was talking to her quietly but forcefully and almost non-stop, sometimes gripping her arm firmly in a way that suggested that she wouldn't be able to pull away easily. I couldn't hear a word that was said, but the lady was looking more and more terrified all the time. Like, nearly about to wet herself terrified. A complete change from her pleasant nature when they had walked in. I told the waitress on the adjacent section that I wasn't sure about what was going on and asked if she wouldn't mind checking on the table to let me know her thoughts. Waitress went to the table, said a few quick words, and came back to me. Out of earshot, she said, "Yeah, I think we have to get her out of here." We let the managers know what was going on. The guy had booked his table. Good. We had his name. Outside at the taxi rank, by some miracle, there was a female cabbie in the line. I ignored the protests of the other drivers. I hopped in and told the cabbie the situation and offered her $20 to wait around the back of the restaurant. I said, "Please don't wait for a destination, just drive, something's really wrong with her date." The cabbie didn't need the $20. We had the front desk call the guy over the PA for an urgent call. This would delay him while they tried to figure what the call was and then realize that he had actually won a meat tray. They were raffled off at various intervals through the night. "Just wait here while we fetch it for you." As soon as creepy guy was out of sight, I asked his date if she needed to get out of here. She just trembled and nodded. Figuring that she probably wasn't in the mood to trust a male at that point, my waitress friend escorted her through the kitchen and out to the waiting cab, where she slipped away quick as you please. The guy came back to an empty table and staff seeming to be oblivious to where his lady friend had gone. We didn't get much of the story, other than that the lady was set up on a blind date by a mutual friend who told her that this guy was okay. This happened to a friend of my wife. She met a guy on a dating site. They agreed to meet at a strip mall parking lot and go to dinner together from there. He asks if he can drive her car because it's a Camaro and he's never driven one. So they go together in her car to a restaurant a couple miles away. Dinner goes okay, nothing too crazy. Then he gets up to go to the bathroom and never comes back. After 10 minutes, she gets up to check on him and her car is gone. He's dashed on the bill and stolen her car. She pays the bill and gets an Uber home and calls the police to report her car stolen. Turns out the guy just left it in the parking lot where they originally met and seems to think he did nothing wrong. Last I heard, he's still being charged with auto theft.
Like, comment and subscribe and also press the bell notification. We are coming up with best stories for you, stay tuned.